Welcome back, guys. So we're going to talk today about something that is called the box model. And this is the idea that every HTML element is inside of a box. Okay, so you guys started with a do now question about this. We're going to come back to the effects that each of these things have on the element. So here, let me demonstrate this by putting something in a paragraph tag. This is paragraph number 1, we'll say. Okay, and then when I run this, you'll see that you have some text on the page. Okay, now you can't really see the box until you put a background color to it. Oh, sorry, before I do that, I have to say that I want to style the paragraph, and I want to go with the color, and let's go ahead and put something that's easily seen. So here you can actually see that the text sits within like a long rectangular box. I'm actually going to go ahead and put a border on this too. So when you put a border, you might have seen this before, but you put a weight for the border, like 5px or 1px, and then you say what type of border. So you could say solid, dash, dotted. There's a few more, but I forget. Solid, and then say like a color, okay? And peach buff, we're going to use that in the exercise, but actually that's not going to look. Can we see that? Oh, you can kind of see that a little bit. All right, and for some reason it's pulling it into, oh, you know, look, it's showing up down here and it shouldn't. And so when I look back at my HTML, I realized that my paragraph never really ended. I didn't put a slash there. So that's the way it should be. So you can kind of see that faint outline. Let's go ahead and make it like a different color so it's easier to see here. Let's say teal. Okay, so you have this border right here. So this is going to help us figure out what it looks like. Okay, so this is the element right there. Okay, now in order to change the way that the box looks, we want to do something called like adding. It's called adding breathing room, or some people refer to that as adding breathing room, which is like adding space between the element and the top of the box, because right now it's really tight against the box and it's kind of annoying. Now, in order to change the position of the text, like right now the box looks really like the text looks really squished in the box, and it's right now I get a little claustrophobic looking at it because it looks like it's really hard to see the text because the box is really tight against it. We're going to do something called adding. We're going to add something called padding. So you did in the do now, you did these questions, and you should have noticed that when you added padding, what happens is the box, the space between the element and the box gets bigger. So padding adds space inside the box like this. And when you change the margin, what that does is it changes the width of the box, but more importantly, it changes the space between the element and the outside of the body of the HTML. So it's changing this outside space right here. Okay, and then you can actually do it more specifically. Padding top will just change the top padding right there and not the other space around it. Margin top will change the distance between the top of the element and the top of the body. So let's try some of these things out. So if I add padding, let's add like 50 pixels of padding right there. And notice that the padding on the left, the top and the bottom changes, okay? Because before there wasn't 50 pixels of padding, it was smaller than 50 pixels, and so it added 50 pixels. What you'll also notice is it didn't make it so that the text was only 50 pixels away from the element on the right. And that's because if the padding or the space between the end of the text and the right side of the box is already bigger than 50 pixels, so it's not going to change it. It's only going to change it in the areas that like weren't 50 pixels. So again, if I turned it to like 100 pixels, you're going to see the top, left, and bottom change, but not the right. Okay. And so yes, it does make the box bigger, but more importantly, it makes the space between the text right here and the inside of the box bigger. So that's padding. It's like the inside. Okay. Now margin is the outside. So if I said margin 60px, I'm going to give you a few pictures and I want you to guess. When I refresh this, I want you to guess what that's going to look like, okay? So hopefully you guessed this situation. All right, so the situation where the outside, the space between the top and the left changed, and the right. Because what we had before is that this element was, the pink was all against the edge of the body of the HTML. Okay, and what it did was it put space on the outside of the box. Now again, it didn't put space on the bottom because there's already more than enough space. It's only going to direct the 60 pixels of margin to the area where it wasn't before. Okay, and it wasn't on the top and the left and the right. So now the top, left, and right all have 60 pixels. Okay, now you can even get fancier with this. You can say, you can direct the margins instead of just saying, like, this is 60 pixels all around. But if you wanted to have different spaces, you could say, you could put in 4 values. So 10 px, 45 px, we'll say 80 px. It's top, right, bottom, left. Let's put 5 px because the bottom already has a lot, and then let's put 80 px, like that. And notice that when you do that, the top only has a little bit, that like each of the top, left, and right have different values, right? This is closer to the right than where it is right there. So, and the way these values work is it starts with the top like a clock, so 12 o'clock. Then it goes to the right, like 3 o'clock. So this is the top margin, this is the right margin, this is the bottom margin, and this is the left margin. Okay, so you can put in 1 value and then that will make it the padding go all the way around. You could put in 4 values and that will be directed each to its own area. So if you wanted to position it differently. You could also put in 2 values. And when you put in 2 values, the first value becomes the top and bottom, and the second value becomes the left and right. So if I just said margin 5 px, 500, let's do 100 px. Okay, the first value is the left-right value, and the second value, the first value is the top-bottom value, and the second value is the left-right value. Like that. Okay, so the top has 5, the left and right each have 100, and they kept the bottom the same because that was more than what I had directed towards it. Okay, and that's why sometimes when we do a picture, we have to do margin 0 auto, because we say 0 between the top and bottom, and auto makes the picture center in the page. All right, so that covers the margin and the padding and the border section of this lesson.